Good morning. It's another Thursday. I'm Susan Haney, and I am grateful for your time here today. I thank you for joining me as we do another story about women of the Old Testament. Now, first of all, I'd like to say that for the next 2 weeks, I may or may not see you here on Thursdays, but I will certainly be back by May the 12th for another story because I have a lot more stories to tell you about the women from the Old Testament. Today we'll be talking about Rebekah, and this is going to be Rebekah Part 1. She has a number of different stories about her in the Old Testament, and we don't want to give her any short shrift. We want to give her all that she needs, all the time that she needs. So we are going to be today in Genesis chapter 24. And as always, I want to ask you to read that later on today to get the nuances of the story that I don't necessarily choose to tell you, because there's always a little bit more to the story than what you see. The beginning of Genesis chapter 24 records that Abraham is now old and that Sarah has died. Isaac is unmarried, and Abraham is really concerned about him being married and marrying the right girl. What parent isn't concerned about their child marrying the right person? He doesn't want Isaac to marry a girl from Canaan, one of the neighborhood girls. He wants Isaac to marry a relative who follows after the God that Abraham follows after. Now, that's not explicitly said in the Old Testament here, but we do know that later on God is very adamant about the people of Israel not intermarrying with the Canaanites because they follow different gods. It's probably not too far a stretch to consider that. Well, Abraham is old, and he wants to keep his son nearby. So instead of sending Isaac to find his own wife, he sends a servant to find him. And the servant packs up an entourage, because nobody went anywhere by themselves in that day and age. He takes lots of gifts to give to the girl and to give to her family, because obviously you had to pay a bride price if you were going to take a man's daughter and marry her. The servant sets off, and as he gets close to the area where he knows that Abraham's family lived, he stops and he lets the camels rest a minute, and he prays to Abraham's God. It's interesting to me that the Old Testament records that he prays in his mind, that he's not praying aloud. And for those people who worry about whether God can understand our thoughts, this is clear proof that we can indeed pray without opening our mouths. So the servant says to Abraham's God, I'm here, and I want to be sure I find the right girl. So the girl who I ask for water and who agrees to water my camels without me asking her, she'll be the one. And as soon as the thought has finished floating through his mind, this beautiful young woman comes with a jar of water. So the servant says, hey, can I have a drink? She stops and puts the water jug down and gives him a drink and says, hey, I see that you don't have anything really to draw water with, so I'll go ahead and water your camels too. Pay dirt. So when the girl comes back, the servant asks her who she is. Hey, sweetie, who are your people? And he finds out that, yes, indeed, she is the daughter that belongs to Abraham's family. Her daddy is Bethuel, and her brother is Laban. So when he finds out that she's the right girl, he gives her a couple of bracelets and a golden nose ring. Oh my, isn't that just what you've always wanted, a golden nose ring? Anyway, she heads back and tells her mother that this guy is here and what has happened. Laban comes out to meet him and says, hey, come on in the house and stay a while, because we've got plenty of food and we've got a place and food for your camels. So just come on and we'll take care of it. So they do that. He goes back and he tells the story again to Laban and Bethuel, and this is remarkable to me too, they agree that this is a God thing. I can't imagine thinking about sending my child off to somebody sight unseen to get married. But that is exactly what they did. Actually, I believe that they said, well, if she'll go with you, take her. And she agrees to go. She and her maids get up on the camels that the servant has brought, and they head on back to the Negev, which is where Isaac is at the time. And it's a long journey, I'm sure. So they get into the vicinity, and she sees this young man out in the fields walking around. Now, some of the commentators want to make that a big deal. You know, what was he doing out there? Maybe he was just praying. He's a praying man. Some people want to say, oh, maybe he was relieving himself. It's really immaterial to the story what Isaac was doing out in the field, but she saw him, and she went to get off her camel. Now, the New Revised Standard Version says that she slipped quickly from her camel. Okay, you know how sometimes the Bible likes to sanitize things? It likes to make people look a little bit better than they were. This is one of those times, because I have read the Hebrew. And the verb that the translators of the New Revised Standard Version chose to say was slipped quietly is the Hebrew verb nafal. And nafal means what it sounds like. It means to fall. So, Rebekah did not slip quietly. She did not alight from her camel. She fell. You know, I don't know. I think about that. That could have been me, because I was a pretty young thing one time, and I was never graceful. I would have been the one who fell off my camel. Maybe you can relate to that too. You know, I can think of things that might have caused me to fall. You know, maybe it was because she was nervous. Maybe her leg was asleep because she had been sitting too long. Maybe she got her heel caught in her hem, whatever, but she fell off her camel. And isn't that always the way it is? When you want to make the best impression that you can, something happens and you embarrass yourself and you feel so silly. Well, you are not alone, my friend. We all do that, and we even have a story of a beautiful woman in the Bible who embarrassed herself by falling off her camel. Thank you for joining me here today. Share this with people that you think might enjoy it. I would appreciate that. I appreciate all of your comments. They encourage me very much. And I hope that you have a great weekend. I hope that you go back and you read Genesis 24. And I hope that maybe sometime during the day you'll have a little chuckle about Rebekah falling off her camel. Thanks, and have a great day.